It is early in the morning of the winter solstice at Bosque del Apache Wildlife Refuge in south central New Mexico. Thousands of geese and sandhill cranes are waking up. Suddenly, some mysterious signal is given and they all erupt. Any person privileged enough to view this spectacle is left in awe, but then begins to wonder, why are these birds here in such incredible numbers? The answer involves present-day management practices and also geological changes that occurred millions of years ago. The middle of New Mexico began to change about 30 million years ago when parallel faults formed from southern Colorado to Texas as the continental plates pulled apart. This fissure, the Rio Grande Rift, is flanked by mountains to the west and to the east. As it widened and deepened, it filled with sediments deposited in several enormous lakes. Climate change, about 8 million years ago, increased the water flow into the rift, breaching the lakes and creating a river we know today as the Rio Grande. Today, the Rio Grande begins in the mountains of southern Colorado, flows through central New Mexico until it reaches El Paso, Texas. As it flows from El Paso southeast to the Gulf of Mexico, it forms the border between Texas and Mexico. The river has meandered for eons through the resulting valley, depositing nutrient-rich soils. Today, New Mexico is primarily a land of deserts, but in this otherwise dry environment, the river and its ancient deposits have combined to form a lush oasis, an oasis intensively farmed. But there has also been some land set aside for wildlife, for the animals that have called this valley home for many generations. Bosque del Apache Wildlife Refuge was established in the late 1930s and today consists of close to 60,000 acres. It is highly managed to provide optimum habitat for geese, cranes, and many other species that either winter here or live here year-round. The refuge managers have created irrigation canals to channel some of the Rio Grande's water into a series of ponds where native wetland plants flourish. These plants form the basis of a food chain that sustains all of the refuge's inhabitants. The refuge staff has also created a number of cultivated farm fields of corn and other crops grown solely for the refuge's wildlife. The refuge's wintering geese and cranes spend their nights on the ponds for protection from predators. Every morning, they leave the ponds and fly to fields both on and off the refuge. Most of the sandhill cranes that winter on Bosque del Apache spend their summers nesting at Gray's Lake Wildlife Refuge in southwestern Montana. In the fall, they leave Montana, usually in family groups of 3, a pair of mated adults and their single offspring of the year. The immature cranes will remain with their parents until they return to Montana in the spring. The immature cranes have a tannish brown wash on their heads and backs as compared to the more uniformly gray mature birds. They lose the tannish color by the end of their first winter. Sandhill cranes eat a wide variety of both plant and animal foods. In addition to the corn grown for them, another of their favorite foods is a tuber, a bulb-type structure of the chufa plant. Chufa is a common sage at Bosque del Apache. The immature birds learn from their more experienced parents as they feed. They probe for nutrient-rich chufa tubers and invertebrates. The snow geese at Bosque del Apache spend their summers nesting in the Arctic tundra. In the fall, thousands of geese make their way to the refuge to spend their winters primarily eating corn. The refuge managers knock down the corn to make it easier for the geese to feed. Mixed in with the snow geese are Ross's geese, a smaller species of white goose that can be identified by its smaller overall size and shorter bill. Along with the geese and cranes, the refuge attracts a wide variety of water-loving birds, including almost 20 species of duck. The northern shovelers can be recognized by their large bills. The female shoveler is mottled brown and tan with an iridescent green speculum and bright orange legs. The male shoveler is more boldly marked. Pintails are somewhat reminiscent of a tuxedo duck with an elongated tail. The male gadwall is a subtle combination of rich browns and black. The uncommon bufflehead is unmistakably marked. Male mallards are a striking combination of an iridescent green head with a brown and mottled body. Bosque del Apache also attracts the ubiquitous American coot. This comical bird physically resembles ducks, but is actually more closely related to cranes. Any area with this much potential prey also attracts predators. As the winter goose, duck, and crane populations swell, so do the number of coyotes, bobcats, mountain lions, and bald eagles. Although bald eagles are known to eat a variety of foods, including fish and ducks, the eagles at Bosque del Apache seem to prefer coots, perhaps because they are relatively easy to catch, particularly when the ponds are partially frozen. Once an eagle catches a coot, it doesn't waste any time. It quickly and efficiently pulls off the feathers and begins eating. The coots congregate in the small patches of open water and are reluctant to fly when threatened. The success rate of predators capturing prey is usually low. A 1 in 10 success rate is considered good. These eagles are successful in about 1 out of every 2 attempts. Some predators, such as the elusive mountain lion, are rarely seen on the refuge, but the fact that they are here is undeniable. A common predator on the refuge is the coyote. Their tracks are everywhere. Coyotes can be seen stalking, then catching geese, particularly those wounded by hunters. If many geese flush suddenly, especially in the middle of the day, look for a predator, such as a coyote. Within a few short moments, 2 coyotes each successfully got a snow goose. A few minutes later, a third coyote got his lunch as well. All 3 coyotes repeatedly ignored the geese out in the open for those in the uncut corn, those that were presumably easier to surprise and ambush. This coyote has come back to retrieve a partially eaten goose carcass it stashed a few hours ago. A second coyote comes in to see if it can have part of the meal. Evidently, the answer is no. The first coyote buries the goose under the snow. Other common Bosque del Apache predators include various species of hawks, such as this immature redtail. Many of the refuge's hawks eat rodents and small rabbits, but they also catch ducks and smaller birds, such as these mountain bluebirds. Vermilion flycatchers are rare here in winter, but are seen catching bugs on a warm winter afternoon. One of the more common winter songbirds is Say's phoebe. They spend much of their time perching, looking for flying insects. Evening comes early this time of year. This quiet pond will soon be covered with snow geese, Ross's geese, Sandhill cranes, and ducks who will roost here for the night. The snow geese are usually the first to leave the fields. Some days they leave the fields in large groups. And sometimes in smaller numbers. Evenings are a time for resting and grooming, and bathing. The Sandhill cranes return from their days of foraging in smaller groups than the geese. As they come in, they often call to locate their family group. Once they land, a nice long drink is the next order of business. Water is not readily available where they feed. Social interactions are common, but drinking is their first priority. As the light dims, the last stragglers come in and establish their territory for the night. The Rio Grande epitomizes what Aldo Leopold said: rivers are the lifeblood of the land. They bring not only water but nutrients to the land and convert the deserts to a riparian garden. Bosque del Apache, the woods of the Apaches, are now the woods of the cranes and the geese. With the continued juxtaposition of natural resources and our protection, it should remain so for many generations to come.